A beautiful Tuesday, and this is your favorite legal program, Jurisprudential Tuesday. Air travel has now become one of most Nigerians' preferred means of transportation in recent times, and this is due to insecurity, rising cost of road transportation. A lot of travelers believe that their obstacles has been ended, but with the aviation industry, there are new issues coming up, such as flight disruptions, and then we have flight cancellation, we have flight delays, and even non-refund of pay. A report was done by the International Center for Investigative Reporting. In May 2023, a resident of Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory by name Ayanfe John had purchased a Dana Air ticket for a trip from Port Harcourt to Abuja, and the trip was scheduled for June 2nd, 2023. An evening to the journey, John received a text message from Dana Air saying that the flight has been cancelled, and the only reason for the cancellation of the flight was operational reasons. This left her into panic. A few minutes later, she was sent a mail, and the mail contains the contact information of whom she was complaining to. She sent her complaint and even called the number. She was told that the refund will be done after 3 weeks. But till as of September 2023, she has not received any money. Another case is that of a Kano resident, Sarah Akoji, who bought an AP's ticket for a trip in July 2023 to Abuja. However, what was intended to be a journey by air ended up being a journey by train, and this was after 12 hours. And data gathered by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority website say that in 2022, a total of 51,772 flights were delayed. Of this figure, over 47,000 delayed with domestic flights, while international flights accounted for 4,628. Also, out of 877 flight cancellation in 2022, 795 were by domestic airlines, and while only 82 international trips were cancelled. Joining us to shed more light on this conversation is Professor ETEFIA EKANEM. He is a prominent legal scholar with a PhD in commercial and property law, specializing in consumer protection law from the University of Nigeria. With over 2 decades of teaching at the University of Uyo, he is celebrated for his profound knowledge and contribution to consumer protection law, including authoring a notable book in the field. He is recognized as the doyen of consumer protection law in the University of Uyo and actively champions consumer rights through his role as the president of the Consumers' Rights and Product Safety Awareness Initiative. In addition to his scholarly pursuits, Professor EKANEM holds a significant administrative position as the Dean of the Students at the University of Uyo, further highlighting his commitment to academic leadership and the mentorship of students in the realm of consumer law. Professor ETEFIA EKANEM, it's good to have you on today's edition of Jurisprudential Tuesday, and I hope that we will meet at about 3 or 4 junctions meet.
Thank you, Odedaka. I think we should be talking about 4 routes, where 4 routes meet, under the baobab tree at Iwokem. I'm sure that's what you mean.
Well, we're really excited to see us in class. We could take this song.
Which of them are we taking?
Tina na na.
Are you taking it now? Tina?
Tina na. Tina na na. Tina. Oh, Tina na na. Tina na. Oh, Tina na na. Tina. Okay, Prof, let's get right into the discussion of today. So, what are the rights of consumers regarding cancellation of flights in Nigeria?
Yeah, first let me say this. Air travel is not localized. It is an international thing. So the laws that regulate air travels, the laws go beyond domestic laws. Almost the same laws that are applied in Nigeria. In this case, the Montreal Convention, which Nigeria is a signatory to. That law, the Montreal Convention, which the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority Act has also adopted, like in Nigeria, particularly in the aviation industry. So, from the law, in this case, the Montreal Convention and the NCA Act, consumers have rights. Apart from that law, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Law has also provided rights for consumers. So, now getting to the question, what rights have consumers in the case of delayed flight? Air travel is basically a contract between the airline and the passenger. So, and in every contract comes with obligation. The airline has the obligation to ferry or convey the passenger to his destination and on time. So when there is a cancellation, in most cases, that will amount to breach of contract. And the law will not allow a consumer or a person to suffer ill without a remedy. The laws have provided remedies for consumers or air travelers in this case whose flights are cancelled. Now, is it possible for one to have, let's just say, an airline or airline operating without cancellation today? That question can hardly be answered in the affirmative, because there are many reasons why airlines cancel, why flights will be cancelled. Not all cancellations will amount to breach of contract, because an airline could have genuine reason beyond their control to cancel a flight. But whenever there is a breach, when the cancellation amounts to a breach, the consumer is usually entitled to rights, remedies.
Thank you, Prof, for taking us through the legal framework. And what are the specific rights that accrue to consumers who patronize the aviation?
There are a number of rights, but I think our discussion has to do with the case of cancellation. Now, when there is flight cancellation, the major right that the consumer has is to be reimbursed, 100% reimbursement of his ticket fee. If he had bought ticket, say 100,000 naira, he is entitled to be reimbursed to the same amount. The rationale behind this is that the consumer had prepared, made his budget for that amount to take him to his destination. He had paid. Being a contract, the contract has not been performed. He is to be put in a position where he would have been but for the breach. Now, apart from...
Prof, we talk about the breach. We're looking at domestic flights and then international flights. Are the percentage different?
Reimbursement will be whether it is domestic or international. It is the amount, the value of the ticket. However, the carrier is also under a duty to provide the passenger information on alternative flight. In some countries, he is entitled to not just providing with information concerning alternative flight. He is also under a duty to exchange such information to include the tickets, so that if there are 3 other airlines flying that route, he is under a duty to give the passenger information concerning the three airlines and the respective fare. So he will be liable if he gives information about one leaving the other or 2 leaving one.
So, Prof, what if the flight is cancelled that same day, maybe at the same time that was allocated for the departure?
Now, let me add this. The requirement of the law is that for domestic flight, the passenger is entitled to notice at least 24 hours of notice of cancellation, at least 24 hours. For international flight, it has to be at least 7 days. This is to enable the passenger to make plans, put himself together, so that he can still make the trip. So, when there's cancellation, at the time he was to take off, beyond reimbursement, the passenger would most likely be entitled to damages, because that would have affected and disrupted the passenger's traveling plan.
Thank you, Prof. There's this case where a passenger was scheduled for an international flight, and then he was to leave by 5:30. I said when he got to the airport at 5:30, his flight was cancelled and rescheduled for the next day. So what are the remedies for such passengers?
This is really trying to address a specific case. That passenger was entitled to have been given to notice if it was a domestic flight, like you have said, 24 hours. When that was not done, he is entitled to, he can claim damages for failure to give adequate notice. Then for the cancellation on his own, he is also entitled to be reimbursed, because the passenger had budgeted a particular amount for that trip and has paid. One does not expect the passenger to go and look for money again to now pay for another ticket. In that case, the passenger would amount to double jeopardy for the passenger. So, beyond giving him the information that the flight has been cancelled, he should have been provided with alternative. What other alternative flight there?
You know, Prof, there's this saying, or this balance. If someone wants to travel, want to use the air, say, I do fast, my go, I don't want to miss my flight. If I miss my flight, they no go pay back. So what are the obligations, on this airline towards their clients or passengers?
That will appear to be what we call no-show. No-show is a situation where a passenger misses his flight. The flight, it is time to check in, he's not there to check in. And the flight takes off, leaving him. That is no show. He failed to show up. At that point, there's a breach. The breach there is not caused by the airline, but by the passenger. But be that as it may, passenger will not lose his ticket completely. Within a particular time, he will be required perhaps to pay something, maybe a little amount, so he can make the trip. Since he had missed that flight, he couldn't. If his seat is there, if he refused or failed or neglected to present himself for the trip, so there's a breach of contract there. In this instance, it's not the airline, not the passenger, but the rules.
Prof, you made mention of reimbursement, and this is the duty of the airlines to reimburse. What if in a case where they don't reimburse, it is not your fault that the flight was cancelled, but in this case, they have not reimbursed the fees you paid? And it's not just only the tickets, even the money for the baggages, the taxis, and the rest of them. What should happen at that?
The consumer has a right to seek for redress. The consumer first can, in every airline, has what we call consumer debt.
Because, Prof, if you had listened to the intro, I made mention of an FCT resident who had boarded a flight from Port Harcourt to Abuja, and then the flight was cancelled a day to the journey, and her money has not been paid back. She could lay this complaint as of June, and then September, the money has not surrendered.
Now, when that happened, from what you said, that she had made complaint to the airline, the courts are also there. The courts are there. It will appear to me that in Nigeria, consumers appear to be docile. I have so many times these things happen and we just walk, the Nigerians just walk away. In other parts of the world, it is not so. When something like that happens, there is, if it is domestic flight, the airline is even expected to do a refund almost immediately. If it is international flight, and it is within 2 weeks. Now, when this is not done, this will amount to breach of law. And when there is a breach, there is always a remedy. The courts are there. It's not just enough to approach the airline, refund my money. You have breached our agreement. You have infracted of my rights. Give me this. When that demand is made, and the other party, the party in default, in this case the airline, refuses or neglect to comply, what should the consumer do? The courts are there.
A follow-up question to that is, imagine a person who has a flight by 7 p.m. and due to some things, the flight is cancelled. And then maybe the person stays there till 9 p.m. What remedies are there for such a person, for such passenger? Would they be given hotels? Would they be booked?
Cancellation of flight is different from delay. You are talking about flight was to be by 7 p.m. and it's kept 7 p.m. you said, and it's kept on a.m. It's kept there beyond that period. That appears to be delay. Now, for delayed flight, there are also obligations on the airline. A passenger is kept that long, is kept like that, he should be given, he is entitled to 1, entertainment, refreshment rather, snack, water, what else? In fact, he should even be given, free calls, text messages, or email. When it is from, say, the hours of 10 p.m. and extends to 4 a.m., then he will be entitled to hotel. You need to keep him in a hotel. There is also an obligation to not just to provide hotel accommodation for him, but to move him from the airport to the hotel where he is to sleep, provide for meals for him, and take him back to the airport when you are ready for the flight.
But Prof, you would read that sometimes delayed flight can lead to cancellation of flight.
When it begins from delay, the consumer is entitled to all the remedies that go with delay. Now, when the delay now transits to cancellation, he is also entitled to it. He's also entitled to the remedies that go with cancellation.
Prof, you mentioned the right. Are there specific rights for passengers? Imagine a passenger who has maybe a health issue, and then he's to travel, adapt maybe by the time he has been scheduled to travel for a health reason, and then the flight is cancelled. Are there specific damages that could be awarded to such passenger?
Now, it will depend rather on the circumstances that led to the cancellation and whether the airline complied with the provisions of the law. When the airline has complied with the provisions of the law, for example, giving appropriate notice as required by law, then the airline will not be liable. But when the airline is in default, then beyond the general damage, the airline would be responsible for specific damages. For example, if as a result of the delay, the health situation of the passenger aggravates and he suffers specific losses or damages, he can plead this in the court, and the court should be minded to awarding him specific damage. Action.
So, Prof, what happens, or there have been that situations where airlines, delayed flights, like the earlier question I asked, that delayed flights can lead to cancellation of flights. But this one, the delay is more than 1 hour, more than 2 hours, more than 3 hours, and then nothing is done. What rights or what damages can be claimed by the passenger?
Let me see this. The level of consumerism in any country depends on the consciousness of the citizen. Now, what happens in Nigeria may not be happening elsewhere. If it does, the percentage might not be that as high as it is here. Where there is a delayed flight, the regulations are there. The airline has the obligation to make provision to make provisions for the passengers, to making sure that the passengers are not distressed, to make sure that they have comfort. And they should also be given notice. They should be given reason for the delay. It's not just a law to reschedule. That will amount to delay without giving reason. Now, where there are delays like you have asked, the airline should specifically make provisions for the passengers. Where would the passengers be? What about refreshment? Like water. Now, if the delay extends beyond where the passenger will need to spend more hours, say to rest, sleep, it is incumbent on the airline to provide hotel accommodation for the passenger. It's not just enough to give the passenger notice, say by text message, that provisions have been made for them in a certain hotel. They will ferry the passenger from the airport to that hotel. Make sure he is given lodging there. That when the airline is now ready for the trip, they will make sure that the passenger is moved from the hotel to the airport to make his flight.
But
now, where this cannot happen, then they were supposed to pay. Provide by payment if the vehicle cannot provide them.
Earlier, I stated of a case concerning Stella Akoje, a Kano resident, and she ended up, instead of the flight she was to take an A by A, she ended up traveling by train, and this was after 12 hours. The story has it that she was there at the airport, and then she slept there in the night with her baby. The next day, they didn't even reschedule them. They only attended to the new passengers that came for the day. But those people that slept over, they were not attended to. And she actually requested for a reimbursement, and they refused. If not because her 8-month baby was crying, they wouldn't have reimbursed that money. Other people that way, they never had their money reimbursed. You've mentioned of going to court. What about this agency that are in charge of regulating the airlines?
The way the law works, the agencies will not just jump into and begin to work if reports are not made. Now, the regulatory agencies, in this case, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, they have a consumer protection unit. Unless information is given to them. Now, without being specific, I'm trying to avoid specific cases, but if that kind of scenario occurs, one will expect that the entire passenger should enforce their right. Let me say this, until we begin to take our right seriously, providers of services will begin to continue to take people for granted. In the case you have mentioned, perhaps there were more than 20, 30, or 50 passengers. Now, can you imagine a situation where all the passengers approach the court to file an action, and they have to pay compensation? Now, when they recover from such, they'll be very careful next time. So for me, the blame should not just be on the airline. The passengers themselves are getting what they think they deserve, because these things are happening, or maybe happening, and they are looking the other way. And it will continue until passengers begin to look at service providers in the face and say, you have infringed my rights, and I'm ready to enforce it.
You've mentioned the Consumers Protection Unit under the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Yeah, and the spokesperson had earlier stated in the year that people don't tell them, people don't come to them to inform, and they don't watch these things on the social media. Why haven't they taken it up upon them, or maybe reached out to the aviation authorities or the airline?
Yeah. Let me say this. Those agencies are not supposed to be picking up cases factual in social media. I have been involved in issue of flight delay, and almost every passenger they walk away. It was when they realized that I was serious. They called me aside. One of my students, postgraduate student was there. He had been my postgraduate student in my consumer protection class. Airline made arrangement for both of us. Because we complained, we thought. They called both of us aside, made arrangement to put us in the next available flight to our destination, while others walked away. Now, when we started complaining, Nigerians, others, they just walked away. They said, the Nigerians will usually leave things to God. They did exactly that. But we decided to take, while we believed in God, we decided to take our faith into our hands by complaining. And it called us, I don't want to mention the airline. They attended to both of us. We got to our destination while others were still there, abandoned. So now, if we all complain, they would have taken action, would have been taken, but they did not.
So what now happens if this flight is cancelled because of an unforeseen hazard? Like maybe what people would say is an act of God.
Usually, an act of God is amounts to frustration. When that happens, what do you call it? Loss is, each person will bear his loss. Because it is even for the safety of the passenger that is not forced into the air.
Prof, I want you to juxtapose this question with what the pronouncement that was made 3 weeks ago by the Minister for Aviation, Festus Keyamo, where he said that compensation will be paid for flights cancelled, despite the circumstances, whether it was unforeseen or not.
I listened to him, Freddie, and I think he was trying to state the law. But with due respect to him, when the law is written, it is immaterial what a person says, and no matter what he says, the position of the law will remain. That is it. So the position will still be as it is stated in the law, irrespective of who and made any pronouncement.
Prof, as we round up, what's your advice or recommendations do you have for consumers who experience flight cancellation in Nigeria?
I think whenever there is flight delay or cancellation, what should a consumer do? Call your lawyer. That is it. Call your lawyer. Because sometimes in the cancellation, reasons are not given. He's entitled to a reason. Sometimes notices are not given. He's entitled to a notice.
Like the reason which the air service provider had given Mrs. John just for operational reasons.
Yeah. Operational reason is very ambiguous and very wide. It could be that there were so many airlines of the wrong way. There could be so many reasons. I haven't given that such a reason. To me, it's not just enough. Consult your lawyer. Your lawyer may be able to find out that there were other reasons behind the reason. So whenever this happens, consult your lawyers. And let me say this, until we Nigerians are ready to take their rights are not usually given like on a plate of eba or beans or abado. No. You need to go and take your right. So you go for it. And how do you do it? With a lawyer. Thank you.
Indeed, Prof, we are finally met at the baobab tree. Indeed, you need to have a lawyer and also know your rights. This is why we call it a wrap on today's edition of Jurisprudential Tuesday. And special appreciation goes to all those who made this program a success, from I Believe Studios to Emmanuel Richard, the members of the faculty media team, and the executive producer of this program, the Dean Faculty of Law, Professor Mojisola SAU. And we once again say thank you to our guest, Professor ETEFIA EKANEM, for being on today's edition of Jurisprudential Tuesday. I remain your favorite host, Odinaka Chukinyanacho. Till when next week come your way, make sure everything you do remains legal. Bye-bye!